Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today I'm excited to be unboxing This War of Mine, the board game. Now you might be wondering, why are you unboxing this game on the channel right now? And I would say to you that this one deserves to have an unboxing on the channel, mainly because I've wanted to actually do this with you guys for quite some time, as I truly believe this one has actually been on my previous top 10 list as being a staple in the solo gaming community. I really truly believe it was accomplished with the building of this particular game. It's narrative driven story, it's immersion factor, it's all off the charts. This actually, in my opinion, spurred up the narrative driven games that we're seeing today. I think a lot of these narrative driven games that are being written out now, that you're seeing coming out, are because of the success that this thing established when it first came out. And I don't think that it necessarily gets the credit in all cases that it should. I really truly believe as a solo gamer, this is one of those games that's very, very easy to get to the table if you want to play it solo, but if you want to play it with other people, it can actually be quite tough. The subject matter is heavy. The choices are hard. The actual, the balance between negative and positive is not 50-50. This is one of those games that you're going to walk away from. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you realize the hardships of what individuals that have to deal with a war-torn situation, whether involved or not involved or an innocent, have to deal with just to survive, is extremely, extremely heavy. And you'd think that that kind of stuff would be extremely hard to build into a board game, and I imagine it was. But I can tell you right now, based on the writing and based on the actual narrative built into this thing and the choices that have to be made and the survival aspects, this is an accomplishment like no other, because typically most people would stick to this in a video game fashion, and I really think they translated it fantastically to a board game. And so, really excited to talk more about this one on the channel. I'd love to hear your guys' comments below, because this has been out for some time. If you've ever played this War of Mine, what were your thoughts of it? What did it invoke in you? Was it emotion? Was it the immersion factor? Was it the hardships? Was it kind of a sadness when you had to do certain things, or there were choices to be made that actually kind of impacted you when you made those choices in the game? Like, I really truly believe this thing gives an experience that not a lot of board games give, and if they do, if the odd one comes around that even comes close, it's very, very rare. But anyway, we're here to see an unboxing of this one. I hope I can show you what you can expect inside the box. Another reason I'm doing this unboxing just before we begin is because a recent expansion came out, so that individuals that weren't part of the original Kickstarter can actually acquire some of the Kickstarter material, at least in terms of content, not necessarily all the really cool pieces that they had available at the time. But the actual story-driven stuff, they can pick it up in a side expansion to enhance this game. So I think it's good timing to kind of come back to this War of Mine, talk a little bit more about it, and bring it back in the limelight a bit. So without further ado, let's flip this box over and see a little bit more about this game. A story that must be told. The sun is about to set, and with it fades the threat of catching a sniper bullet if you are reckless or desperate enough to stick your nose out of the shelter. But the night brings no solace. Whatever little supplies we gather are now at risk because of marauding looters and worse. Our group is small, but we manage. Right now, the strongest among us are readying themselves to sneak out under the cover of darkness and scavenge food and anything of value. The rest will try to catch some sleep and prepare for another day of war. Another day of struggling for survival. Welcome to Pogorin, a besieged city where a group of citizens is trying to survive the horrors of an unending war, make hard choices, face difficult challenges, and tell unforgettable and meaningful tale whenever you share this unique experience with your friends. There are no points or competition, just those who make it until the ceasefire. The road to survival is hard, as you are trapped in the middle of a military conflict where moral and ethical principles lose meaning. Manage your shelter, craft items necessary for your existence and defense, explore the vast city, and risk your life scavenging for resources along with your friends. Is surviving war a victory? That depends on what you become. Now, one thing I really want to draw your guys' attention to at the very, very bottom here is this blurb right here. Over 1,900 story scripts. Unique stories come to life and consequences are felt with every choice you make. So this is going back to my original statement. This is a game where experiences are going to occur to you that you are going to remember how your play went down, how it happened, what happened, and why it happened. Like, the choices you make are going to have impacts to the survival outcome of your group and party that are trying to just make it through to the ceasefire. Again, you can see here in terms of the component quality, without even looking inside, you can tell already that the actual artwork as well as the miniatures shown here, as well as the game board, looks really, really good. So when you first take the box lid off of this War of Mine, you're going to be greeted with the Book of Scripts. And this is a book that's actually quite large, larger than it looks. There is a lot of text in this thing, and as you can see if you go through it, their text is actually quite small, so there's going to be a lot of reading involved in this one, but I'm not going to stop any of these pages, mainly because there's a lot of spoiler type stuff in here, and this is something you really want to discover on your own. But I truly wanted to show you that when I said 1,900 game scripts basically being made here, I was not joking. There's literally a ton in this thing, so there's, like, you can see it actually goes over 1,900, and you've got that entire script book right here. You'll be referencing that throughout your entire playthrough. Now, the next thing you're going to find when you move in is the journal. Now, this journal here is a lot smaller than the other one. It says at the beginning, during a playthrough after setup, you will go through a full day and night cycle that is divided into 7 phases as described in the journal. You do not have to know all the rules to begin this experience. The icons, decks, keywords, spaces, attributes, and other elements will be explained as you proceed. That is all. Let us begin. You will learn everything else during the game. So this is one of the coolest things about this War of Mine, is that yes, you could sit there and read the rulebook if you so choose, or dive a little deeper in, but you don't have to. You can literally just begin your journey from this journal. So the journal is not going to be a ton of pages. It's going to be enough to get you through those first few steps, and it's obviously got the setup here. So it's got arrows kind of going everywhere, basically showing you what decks, how to draw certain amounts of cards from certain decks, where to place them on the board, all that kind of stuff. Once you've gotten all your combat dice set up, you got all your colored bases on your characters, all that good stuff, then you're ready to go. You just follow the instructions as displayed, and it's literally going to take you through different sections of the day. You're going to start with your morning. You got an event phase, tells you when to move to the next player. Of course, you're playing solo, things are different. You're controlling pretty much everything. It's all in a cooperative environment as you're just trying to survive. Day actions, you've got certain actions you're able to do every day. You got available actions telling you all the different things you can potentially do. Dusk, where things happen, because again, every single one of these parts of the day are going to be, throwing different things that you have to deal with, or potentially giving you a chance to sleep in a bed or sleep on the floor, have guard duty going on in case you have to worry about individuals trying to come to your encampment and steal stuff from you, or try to take you out during the night. Scavenging as well, sending people off to scavenge for supplies, like where they want to go. It's just really cool and thematic. Like, I can't say enough about it. In terms of a solo experience, this one is a second to none. There's not many things like it, and it's something that I definitely highly recommend. It has been around for quite some time, and I am familiar with it, and I cannot wait to kind of show you guys more components in here. So next thing we've got is the save sheet. So this is going to be a nice handy sheet allowing you to save things, because of course if you need to tear things down, whatever, you can reference where everything's at, how much you have in certain spots, all that good stuff. So you've got about, 15 pages or so here that you can use. Of course, what you could always do is laminate this. I've done that with a number of things like this. When you get these ones where you only have like a few, there's maybe 10 or 15 here. I just take one and laminate it, and then you can just wipe it off and resave and use the same sheet over and over. You also get some Ziploc bags, of course, because there's a ton of tokens in this thing. You get a scenario here, so this one's called Endless Nights. So I'm not going to go ahead and read all of this in detail, but basically it's got setup changes. It's talking about like every step, the scenario objective, changes in rules, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to play this particular one, this is what you're doing. Flip it over to the side. You've got another one here called The Last Day. So you got these different situations you can kind of throw yourself into, which is pretty cool. Again, if you're starting off from scratch, just start with the journal. It'll make life easy. Now we get into the tokens. The tokens are awesome in this game. Super easy to understand. You're not going to be looking at these things trying to figure out what icons mean what. Everything has a word on it. Not only it's in picture form, but it's also literally written on the tokens themselves. So there's going to be absolutely no confusion that this is alcohol. You've got moonshine, you got bandages, herbal meds, books, shovels, guitars. You got some timers for weight, board up. You know, you can board up areas of your house and stuff like this to try to keep people from getting in, type thing. Misery, your misery wounds and all that kind of stuff can be tracked in your characters. You got, you know, everything's straightforward token wise. I really didn't find the token thing overwhelming, and it was great that, again, the wording is there, so you don't ever have to worry about trying to figure out what you're looking at. Flip it over to the other side. There's only a few different things. If you flip these to the opposite side, you've got wounds, epilogue, and different things are happening. Again, not worth explaining in the unboxing, but everything that's a typical token that you would acquire, you know, raw food, for instance, it's the same on both sides, I believe. Yes, raw food, just it's exactly the same on both sides. So that's the first token board. Next one here, we've got fatigue, we got hunger, because you're talking wounds, fatigue, and hunger are the three main attributes or characteristics or whatever you want to call them that you're basically going to be managing as you try to keep these individuals alive. And these individuals that are going to be in this shelter are going to be suffering from these three things in varying capacities and at varying levels. And it's going to be changing all the time. So you're going to be constantly managing, like, you know, you have one person who's just absolutely exhausted, another person who's basically dying of hunger, and you're trying to get resources to deal with all of these problems. So it certainly is mitigation at its finest. You got things like vegetables, electrical parts, weapon parts, canned food, ammo. Again, fantastic because everything's just written on the tokens. No need to be looking at icons, wondering what the heck you're seeing. And again, if you got something like an assault rifle, well, it's an assault rifle. Like, it's so easy to comprehend. And it's good because there's a lot of tokens in this one, so if it wasn't labeled, it'd be a serious problem. There's other ones here too. There's illness and stuff like that can get introduced. Again, not going to talk too much about all that craziness, but you know, getting sick is a thing. And you've got jewelry. Again, you've got all kinds of other tokens here that really are going to relate back to story events that'll happen throughout the game or be tokens for particular events that happen. But again, talk that later. Cold, board up, whole bunch of tokens here all over the place, lock picks, everything. So that was about what, 3 tiles worth. Now we get into the actual game board itself. And I got to tell you, this game board is absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to try to get this thing on the table. It's quite big. I'm going to actually lay this out. I might have to zoom out a bit. We might have to do this in 2 sections, but I really want to show you what this thing looks like on the table. It's really awesome. All right, so here is a look at the game board. This is only about 2/3 of it because I couldn't get the whole thing in the shot, and there is a little bit of glare going on, so I do apologize about that, but I will tell you guys what's in these areas where the glare is hitting the table. But basically, this actual structure that you'll be trying to survive inside of and live within is really interesting how they've laid this thing out. It's all got cards everywhere. When you do set this up for the first time, you're going to have decks all over the place in here. You're going to have areas that are full of rubble that you can search through, doors that are closed that you need to like actually get into in order to even have them available to build things inside of. All that craziness. There's literally all kinds of things to do within your structure, not just leaving it. So you can see over here on the far left-hand side, I'm not going to go ahead and specify everything you're going to see, but essentially you've got things here like noise tracking, locations here, unarmed, melee, firearms, exploration, residence, findings, night raids, all these watermarked areas for different slots based on different things that are going to happen to you throughout your adventures. Events, objectives, visitors, characters, fittings, and ideas across the very top. Of course, that gets cut off because it's off to the right there, but I will move over there later. You've got your actual structure itself where your individuals will be living inside of and trying to board up and stay safe inside of this thing, as well as venturing out the door in order to go to the outside world, find some locations to scavenge and gain supplies. You've also got all kinds of things here that specify right on the game board itself, like poke about, so you can try to, you know, find some things in the house, like try to find wood, because you scavenge some wood off the side of the wall or something. The bottom portion of the game board has a storage section. You can just see down the bottom right here. So really, as you gain supplies, and those tokens are going to start sitting in this area. And that's basically where you're going to start accumulating all that stuff. And of course, the more resources, the better. So here's a closer look at the right-hand side of the board. So you can see far over here, you got characters, fittings, ideas, fate, narrative actions, colors, storage times 5. So once you start accumulating so much stuff in the storage area, that basically you have 5 of it. Instead of just actually having a whole bunch of wood in there, you can just move it over there and boom. If there's one piece of wood over there, it means you have 5. Just another way to manage things. Again, sorry about the actual glare on the board. It really isn't this bad, but I am in the studio area here, so lighting is definitely difficult when you have multiple lights hitting the table. It certainly adds some glare to the thing, but I really hope this still gives you an idea as to the game board and how it looks. It is really, really nice. And the actual artwork on the board is really immersive. They did a great job with it, and it really follows that video game feel that you got if you've been playing the video game at all. 100%. It feels exactly the same way. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to actually flip this thing over, because there's this side of the game board, but there's also an alternate side of this game board as well. So as you can see here on the opposite side of the game board, they make use of that as well. You're not just getting a one-sided game board, you're actually getting a whole other side with a different structure to deal with within this War of Mine. I think that's really cool. It also sets itself more in a snowy winter seasonal atmosphere, and of course this structure is actually quite different than the last one we just looked at. Now it's time to take a closer look at the components inside the box now that we've finished off with the game board. So let's go ahead and start with the miniatures. So here's an up-close view of the miniatures that come in the box for this War of Mine. I was really impressed that all the different sculpts are different. Didn't see any duplication there. They were all individual sculpts, so that makes for a more unique experience, not seeing all that duplication, and I was really happy with the quality overall. You can expect to find 4 different colored stands that will clip onto the bases of the 4 characters you choose to be when playing this War of Mine. There is also some really high quality custom dice for this game as well. I'm really impressed by the engravings on it. The iconography looks really good, and the actual quality of the dice themselves are very, very nice. There's not a ton of dice in the game because you don't need a ton, but they are going to represent the success or failure of some of the outcomes of the narrative. So you'll be using these quite a bit. And here's a close-up view of the wood pieces within the game. You can actually hear them. They actually sound really high quality, they look good, and it's nice to not just be using cardboard tokens. You're also going to find some really nice glass beads in the game. This one's for a tracker, and this one I believe related to noise if I remember correctly, and these ones are related to water. So when you gain water as a resource, you'll actually be using these to denote that. And they look fantastic. And last but certainly not least are these little gear pieces or spare pieces and parts. They look absolutely fantastic. They sound just as good as they look too, and it's really nice having the upgraded components inside the box. So now we'll take a close-up look at the back of this particular deck of cards. This is one of the decks of 4 that are in the box. You got residence, location cards, and you also have some event cards. We'll flip these over, take a closer look. I'm going to skip past anything that's got some serious narrative on it because I don't want to spoil things for you guys. But for the most part, I want to give you a feeling as to what you can expect on the cards and what they kind of look like in general. So you can get a rough idea as to the feel of things, but I don't want to really spoil anything. So if you don't want to see this stuff, that's fine too. You can skip past this, but again, you're going to have different locations you're going to go through, Central Square, like a church. These are locations you can potentially find yourself in when you're sending individuals out to scavenge, and there'll be different things you can potentially find based on a die roll and how successful you are. You've got all these little numbers on the bottom relating back to the story and narrative events, but there's a whole bunch of these things. And then we get into what I believe is, yes, residents. So these ones are kind of upside down at the moment. So we got some civilians, deserters, hobos, homeless. These are all kinds of different things can essentially just pop up as you're playing through the game. So some things are good, some things are bad. So this deck is all about night raids. We've got ourselves a workshop building. Actually, these are not just a workshop. It's literally, this is what you're going to be using your wood and your scrap metal for, like metal pieces or mechanical parts, I guess what they call them, in order to build things. All these different things you can build inside of your, residence, if you want to call it that, because it's really just like a beat down house. But these are all different things you can buy, like cooking stoves, which will make, eating easier to stave off hunger. And you've got, heaters to keep people warm. So got morale, it's going to help with their building a bed. bed so people can sleep actually in a bed and get a better sleep than sleeping on the floor. You got narrative actions here as well as some colors and things like that. So let's go ahead and flip these over and just move through it. So again, not going to be able to talk too much about what I'm seeing here color wise. Maybe they have to do with story. You got close call. So this is what some of the narrative actions look like basically in terms of how they feel. So hopefully that gives you a good idea. Not going to go through every single one of them, but just a few of them. And then we'll come over here to this pile, which is all focused on night raids, I think. Maybe it's... Oh no, this is the actual, these are the things you can, so once you've created them, these are what's going to actually sit in a space in your particular house again. And if you built a chair, for instance, you'll be able to gain rest abilities, cooking stove, heater. This is not spoiler stuff. This is the stuff you're going to want to actually build inside of your establishment or whatever you want to call your shelter, really. Rugged hoodlums, sorry. Hobos, looters, so all kinds of things that can happen, memories that can happen, gangs, all kinds of stuff, starving people coming, thugs, like there's all kinds of stuff to deal with in this game. So those are the first two decks up top. Let's take a look at the bottom two next. So this third deck has a whole bunch of cards going on here. It's a mix of a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not going to be able to explain to you guys quickly, so I'm just going to kind of shuffle through these things because there's actually two sides to a majority of these, but you can see in terms of the look and feel of the cards, there's quite a bit of a different thematic feel to the different types of cards. And you've got cards here that are going to be things you might find as you go through, like here's your findings deck. So basically these are the things you find when you go on your adventure to try to find some resources, and this is what it's going to tell you, you go ahead and raid the pantry and bring all these items back for your guys to try to keep them alive. So you got other things here going on in terms of what's going to be happening inside the house you live in. So you can build some bars, you can have closed doors and all that stuff. And of course, on the opposite side, it tells you what you actually gain if you get through those things. So that's kind of spoilers, so I'll just stick it on this side here. This is really just things that you're going to see straight up and down inside of your area, like a heap, and you can choose to search it, flip it over, and deal with it. So heap, for instance, has like a multiple. Rubble has a multiple because you're digging through. You can use a shovel. You can use two people to kind of increase your chances of things. That's kind of how this game works. It's kind of a mitigation of not only bad things, but a risk reward on trying to go after good things too. And finally, the fourth deck here has a bunch of blank cards to start. We got some fate cards here. We've got exploration cards, a whole bunch of them. And then character cards. So this is going to get into the actual individuals we can probably be within our adventures. Yes, here we go, like Anton. So we're going to have names for every one of these characters. And you've got an actual miniature, so you can find a miniature that relates. And this is why you have individual actual cuts for these particular miniatures and molds that are going to be different so that you can easily identify them character cards wise. So you're going to find certain individuals work best together. You'll have to try to figure out the team that you really like together. And then these ones are actually relating to exploration. So these are things you might find as you kind of go through. So again, I'm not going to like stick on them too long, but there's a whole bunch of different things you're going to find when you go through the game. Pretty awesome. And then you're going to get to these cards here that are fate cards. So these are going to be some other major cards in the game. So I really hope this is informative in helping you make your mind up as to whether or not you want to pick up this War of Mine or not. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the game, as this game's been out for quite some time. I'd love to hear what's your opinion of this War of Mine. Do you still play it? Do you love it? Is it one of those games that's never leaving your collection? Have you already played it, enjoyed it as much as you can, and now it no longer is in your collection? Or have you just never heard of it, or do you just never want to play it for specific reasons? So definitely let me know. I'd love to hear your comments, and we'll see. This one might be one that ends up getting a playthrough on the channel at some point as well. I think it'd be a really fun one to do. And when I say fun, I mean extremely tough, because the subject matter that this thing goes through is some pretty heavy stuff, but I really think it would be interesting for sure. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.